Hi again, everyone. Thank you for your patience and for participating to today's webinar. As I said, my name is Maximilien Pierotti. I work for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization in Morocco as a program coordinator. Today's webinar comes within the H2O Maghreb project, which we'll be talking about in a more extensive way today. And this is a project which is financed by the USAID and implemented by a number of partners, including UNIDO. And again, this is a project that is located in Rabat, the capital of Morocco. And today, the objective of this webinar is pretty much to share the knowledge, the good practices, and the lessons learned that we have come across through the implementation of this project, so that we feel it may be of some use wherever you work in the water sector. So now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Salma Kadiri from USAID. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Hi, everyone. I'm Salma Kadiri. I'm the economic growth specialist working with USAID Morocco for more than 3 years now. And I am actually the AOR of H2O Maghreb activity. I'm really pleased today to take part to this webinar to share with you USAID's perspectives. Basically, USAID has been involved in Morocco's water sector for over 20 years. And lately, we have identified two major issues in this sector. First, and like its neighboring countries in the region, Morocco is faced with the challenge of sustainably develop and manage its water resources. Actually, it's worth to mention that Morocco ranked 23rd among countries most threatened by water scarcity, according to the World Resource Institute. In addition, the pressure on water resource will be increasing in the future due to the population growth in Morocco, its rapid urbanization, and its developing economy, including the industry and agriculture sectors. The second challenge identified here related to the water sector is an important skills gap in the wastewater sector due to the lack of specialized education institutions and also to the growing demand from the private sector on profiles with wastewater management related skills and knowledge on the latest technology in this field. So to respond to these challenges raised as national priorities in Morocco, USAID has joined forces with many partners to establish a state-of-art training called H2O Maghreb. So in this endeavor, we are partnering with the Ministry of Education, the Water Department, the National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water, ONE, who is the entity hosting the training hub within its premises in Rabat, the capital of Morocco. We also benefiting from the contribution of the private sector actors who are playing key role in this partnership, thanks to their substantial contributions from two major companies, Face2 Didactic and Eon Reality. And finally, we are delighted with our partner, United Nations Industrial Development, who is doing a great job implementing successfully this activity. So all this effort resulted in public and private partnership aiming to improve the industrial and municipal water management practices in Morocco. So we came up with this program with a budget envelope of $2.7 million to be implemented over 2 years. So this partnership has allowed USAID to leverage the private sector engagement to address the market needs in terms of training and also to help create synergies between the private sector and local partners in order to ensure a smooth knowledge transfer. So to this end, H2O Maghreb takes a holistic approach toward wastewater management. So the future graduates can gain theoretical knowledge and hands-on experience to enable them to respond to various and complex needs of several sectors. In addition, this training hub includes the most recent technologies innovations, such as adaptive, virtual reality, and automation technologies called Discovery Environment Discovery System, the EDS. These technologies has proved to be useful tools in introducing professions and students to new disciplines and to the labor market, which in turn will enhance youth employability in Morocco and help them increase their chances to find jobs and sustain them. Obviously, this initiative is in line with USAID Morocco strategy of increasing socioeconomic inclusion within marginalized areas in Morocco, especially for youth and women. It's worth to mention also that this current strategy is promoting innovation by using science and technologies to improve livelihood opportunities for youth and young female, especially. So having said this, and after almost 2 years of implementation, H2O Maghreb concept was proven successful as the training curricula is highly appreciated by students and also by their employers. In addition to that, the Moroccan government has authorized the replication of this curricula in many education institutions. So I want to add finally that this program is intended as a proof of concept with the idea of replication in other countries, probably in the MENA region or other sub-Saharan countries. This thanks to its flexible and modular approach that can be tailored to countries suffering from the same challenges as in Morocco. So basically, this is the main reason why we are having this webinar session. We would like to share our insights, best practices developed under H2O Maghreb, hoping that this would be useful for other missions in USAID and maybe a starting point for future collaboration or replication elsewhere. So, in this positive note, I hand over the floor to my colleagues to share with you more details about the program context, challenges, and more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Selma. And now I'll pass the floor on to my colleague Ulrike. We'll start with showing you a quick video on our H2O Maghreb project. So Ulrike, the floor is yours now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ulrike Blättri. I'm also working for United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and I'm responsible for the project coordination of the project H2O Maghreb. So in the following slides, I would like to give you some more information about the context and the challenges of water, especially in Africa and the MENA region. And then I would like to talk about the implementation of the project H2O Maghreb to give you some further details on that. So water availability is becoming increasingly a challenge, especially in Africa and the Middle East. More and more countries worldwide actually are suffering from water stress and water scarcity. So not only African countries, but this is definitely a challenge. So climate change is definitely a challenge that is affecting Africa and the MENA region most in the world, basically. By 2025, basically the complete MENA region is expected to suffer from water scarcity and water stress. This means that people have a water availability of less than 1,000 cubic meter per person per year. By 2025, 28 African countries will face water scarcity and water stress with a negative outlook. So this means that over 70% that I hope you got the last slide. I'm sorry for that. So this the last slide showed an overview of the water scarcity and water stress worldwide. So now on this slide, focusing more on the African continent. 70% of the African population will suffer from water scarcity and water stress by the year 2025. And fresh water availability will be less and less in the coming years and following. So inadequate water supply and sanitation cause considerable economic losses as well for these countries. The challenges in the water sector related to the economic development are a shortage of water, a problem we can hardly overcome. So this is more due to climate change in terms of quantity, but as also in quality. Adaptation. So this means that people have to adapt to new technologies to leverage other sources of water to be able to protect the water sources in a better way. There is a necessity of investment in the water sector following these needs. Another problem is that there's a big lack of training opportunities to cope with these new challenges, followed by a shortage of qualified workers. Another problem is the limited knowledge on institutional side to tackle these challenges, and a lack of standards and legal aspects. So you can see there's a multitude of challenges, especially developing countries are facing. How did the project H2O Maghreb approach these challenges? So this is something I'm going to show in the new slide. Water availability in Morocco is steadily decreasing to a multitude of reasons, being climate change as mentioned, but also growing population, rapid urbanization, and a developed economy go hands in hand with an increased water demand. So if the water is not treated in an adequate way, this means that the water resources are going to be polluted and degradation of resources is taking place. this is why the Moroccan government responded. So the Moroccan government responded to this steady decrease of water availability with the national water strategy for the year 2030. By the year 2030, Morocco is expecting to have 5 billion cubic meters per year of deficit. So 5 billion cubic meters mean, so 1 billion cubic meter is 1 square kilometer. So it's a real huge amount of water that is lacking. So half of this deficit should be covered due to the Moroccan strategy by additional surface water sources, desalination, reuse of treated wastewater, and capture of rainwater. As I mentioned beforehand, water distribution and water availability and water consumption goes hand in hand with pollution that has to be, so the wastewater has to be treated after that. The current situation in Morocco is that about 74% of the wastewater is collected in urban areas, and only about 40% are collected in rural areas, whereas 45% of this collected wastewater is treated, and less than 30% of the collected wastewater is subject to advanced wastewater treatment. So this means that only about 10% of the wastewater generated in Morocco is treated, is subject to an advanced treatment. So there is still a rather long way to go, and with the future prospect that until the year 2030, with economic and demographic growth, around 50% more wastewater is going to be generated. So out of these figures, you can see that there is a huge demand on the one hand side to have skilled people for water supply, but also for wastewater treatment. H2O Maghreb is building capacity along the entire cycle from drinking water to wastewater. So the project is targeting the capturing of drinking water, water distribution, sewage network, and wastewater treatment. H2O response. So the training project, what's so special about the training program H2O Maghreb? So the way the program was built is that it's a new training approach. So it is a modular approach, meaning that 19 modules were built, giving it a lot of flexibility for the trainers and for the trainees. And it's a very hands-on training. There are two training modes. Basically, one is that young technicians are trained, or young students are trained that don't have work experience yet. So it's a full-fledged 6 months training. And the second mode is professionals training. So professionals can come in and take one of those modules, one or more of those two modules, 2 to 5 days, and enhance their knowledge on that. Innovative training tools were applied within this training. So we're, as already mentioned by Salma, virtual reality is one of the training methods. Environmental discovery system is another one, and we're also using e-learning. I'm going to say a few more words about the EDS system later on, but this is really to give this this image that there are different training types also to facilitate the training for the students, and students are able to learn with different methods to really have the entire picture, not only on the subject matter, but also different training methods to easier learn and to capture more quickly. We're working so another important fact is that it's not only capacity building of students and professionals, but the capacity is also built to stay within the country. So there's a strong emphasis on training the trainers so that the knowledge actually stays within the country even after the project is over. And along the same lines, to guarantee the sustainability of the project and to easily replicate, the whole training program is accredited nationally, so that basically any training institution can replicate this program within Morocco, but also elsewhere. All this leads to qualified workforce and also to a workforce, to an independent training. So this independent training institution, independent meaning independent from industries and from facilities, meaning that this workforce is trained to constantly feed the market. So even if some workers drop out for whatever reason, there's a constant feed into the market so that the training persists and the knowledge persists within the country in order to avoid brain drain, and also to constantly improve the level of knowledge. As mentioned earlier on, 19 training modules were identified and developed with the local stakeholders from industry and the public sector. And they were developed in the 4 domains: drinking water, sanitation, operation, and maintenance. And along with that, we developed also around 30 workbooks and manuals that will soon be available online on our LKDF webpage as well. We are working together with the well-established facilities and premises of ONE, of the national water provider in Morocco, and with the training entity, the International Institute for Water and Sanitation. So they initially were already well established in the country and well equipped with training platforms for water distribution and sewage collection. They also have very good, which is a very nice feature for the students, especially different wastewater treatment plants. For example, they have an activated sludge wastewater treatment plants, lagoons. They have a wetland as well, and they also had control systems, workshops for hydraulics and mechanics. All these facilities were complemented with innovative state-of-the-art technical equipment from Festo Didactic and Eon Reality. So Festo provided the innovative EDS equipment, which basically consists of modules to duplicate a wide range of operational practice in lab scale, so that students can basically play around, see what happens if they do a mistake and how they can repair a mistake without doing harm to the environment or doing harm to themselves. Along similar lines is the virtual reality platform developed by Eon Reality. So Eon Reality developed a complete wastewater treatment plant in virtual reality. And through this virtual reality wastewater treatment plants, water technicians can learn how to cope with events that are of low probability but high risk. And they can learn what the consequences to health and safety, equipment and environment are. The EDS, so some words about the EDS water management stations. So these stations treat the complete water cycle, so from water supply to water transport, membrane filtration, sand filtration, water purification, wastewater treatment, but also automation, which is becoming an increasingly becoming increasingly more important also in developing countries. I'm now going to show a short video that features the EDS water management system, where you will find all the elements just stated. So these were some impressions from the EDS stations applied in Morocco. These innovative learning methods like EDS and virtual reality enhance the classical classroom training, and they enable better, faster, and safer skills training for water sector professionals. The result was that, well, this was perhaps not especially related to the better skills training, but the nice thing of the training was that over 70% of our participants were female participants. So it had a very big traction among young females in Morocco. And 70% of our participants got a job offer even before finalizing the training. So the industry was very interested in the participants in the training. And this was also we had a very positive feedback from industry in the end. So students were basically operational right from the start due to the very practical and hands-on training. So with this positive outlook, I will hand over to Stefan Windberger, who will now give you an overview about the project, the project implementation as such, and about the PPDP model. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me okay. My name is Stefan Windberger. I'm based at the UNIDO headquarters in Vienna as well. And I will talk a bit about the modality that we have with this H2O Maghreb project and the public-private development partnership approach in particular. So basically, as you can see on the screen, for us, what was very important in the layout of this project was to find out a very sort of a structure that works for all of the project partners. So similar to a classical public-private partnership, which many of you might be familiar with, here in this case, we have a private sector partner, public sector partner. So there's always on the side of the, say, host country of these projects, some ministries, vocational training and or commerce, or in this case, also the State Secretariat of Water, who are interested in promoting economic development and employment opportunities, and who have a particular sector and a particular interest to do so. Then on the other hand, there is a private sector company or several companies that aim to enter new markets, require a skilled workforce in these markets. And then, since this is a development project, we also move from a classical PPP approach to a PPDP by bringing in a development partner. Typically, that would be development agencies aspiring to reduce poverty and promote sustainable development. And sort of, if you look at this from, say, a Venn diagram perspective, these three parts, so the public sector, the private sector, and the development sector, there's an overlap in the midst, the mutual benefit, which for UNIDO classically has been sort of the sweet spot where we try as a neutral and trusted intermediary and an organization, a specialized agency of the United Nations, to establish and upgrade local industrial training academies. So H2O Maghreb in this respect is actually part of a larger network of similar projects, which is under the umbrella of the LKDF, the Learning and Knowledge Development Facility. Well, we have the link later on in the presentation on the LKDF. But as I said, the main aim for this would be for us to find a way, how can we improve, like looking at the industrial skills gap in certain developing countries and particular sectors. How can we find a structure that allows, on the one hand, the host country to pursue their economic development goals, on the other hand, allows the private sector, both international companies who are willing to enter new markets, but also national companies to get the training that they need. So looking at it from the employer side, how can we ensure that the training is up to the standards of the companies in the country who are willing to recruit young people in the respective sectors? And then on the third hand, obviously the development agencies who have certain areas, certain countries where they are trying to trying to reduce poverty, trying to promote sustainable development, and also have sector-specific ideas. So for us, this has been a very interesting approach and a very successful one. We're currently active in 3 continents, in close to 15 projects. And I will sort of also try to illustrate this a bit more in detail with just another slide on the concrete case of H2O Maghreb, so that it becomes a bit more tangible for you. So yeah, as you can see here, so on the development partner side, we have USAID, who are contributing to this project, and you've heard our colleague Salma Kadiri from USAID Morocco talk about the USAID's perspective early on in this webinar. On the side of the private sector companies, you have 2 partners in this case. You have Festo Didactic with their environmental discovery system, where you saw the quick video just before, and then Eon Reality as well, who are sort of providing the virtual reality part. So similar to, say, how a pilot learns to fly, our young water professionals learn how to operate a wastewater treatment plant in a simulated way, which reduces the sort of risk, obviously, of hurting themselves, and which also makes unexpected or rare situations, which makes it much easier to learn how to react in these situations. So in this case, these private sector partners, what's their contribution, you might ask? That's basically they contribute certain machinery, certain equipment in kind to the project. So in this case, Festo contributed the EDS stations in kind to the project, and Eon Reality contributed the VR. Festo, in addition, also provided some workbooks, as my colleague Ulrike Blatry said, and some e-learning modules. So it's really something that they do for the project, where there's no monetary contribution as such. And then on the third side, sort of you have the local host country priorities. In this case, we partner with actually 3 institutions. One is the ONE, the Office National de l'Électricité et de l'Eau Potable, which is basically the national office for electricity and drinking water. And then 2 Moroccan ministries. One is the Ministry of Vocational Training, National Education and Vocational Training, and the other one is basically the State Secretariat of Water. So on the one hand, you have the education angle. On the other hand, you have an angle which is more concretely tied to the purpose of this project, which is the water sector. And then in the midst of these 3 different partners, public, private, and development, you have UNIDO as sort of, as I said, a trusted intermediary managing the project on the ground in Morocco, and as well with some support from headquarters in Vienna. Moving on to the next part, which is gonna, before we move to the questions on your side, we will have your we'll have a quick presentation of sort of what we think is the future for this project. One is which is basically the project replication in Middle East, Northern Africa. And just to sum up a bit, sort of what we think are the strengths of this project. First is the PPDP that I just explained, an innovative partnership approach, which has proven success, not only for H2O in Morocco, but also we've deployed a very similar approach in Liberia, in Ethiopia, Zambia, and South Africa for other projects. Then the customization, which is basically we have developed curricula in 4 domains, 19 different modules, but which can be used, but which can also be easily tailored to the local context. So in terms of replication, that would be very easy on our side to actually move this and adapt it to the local context of whatever country. Then in terms of innovation, as I mentioned briefly, and as you've seen in the video, what we think is one of the particular strengths of this project is the inclusion of both the virtual reality part, thanks to Eon Reality, and also the environmental discovery system, which is a part of Festo. And also, and then probably finally, on the ground, we have a very strong partnership with ONE, with this Moroccan National Office for Water and Electricity, and their training hub in Rabat, in the capital of Morocco, is currently serving as a base for H2O Maghreb, but could also, in theory, serve as a base for, say, train the trainers for water professionals from other countries in the MENA region or even Sub-Saharan Africa. In terms of the alignment with what is always a primary concern for us as an agency, a United Nations agency, is the Sustainable Development Goals. The first one up is quite obvious, I would say. The main SDG that this project is aligned with is SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation. But given sort of the scope, the educational scope, especially of the project, we also have a strong sort of linkage to SDG 4 on quality education, SDG 5 on gender equality, by having, as my colleague Ulrike mentioned, close to 4 out of 5 students in the 4th batch being female. And then by looking at SDG 17, partnership for the SDGs, by partnering through these PPDPs with a lot of public, private, and development actors. So summing up before we move to the Q&A, from our perspective, what are the main benefits of the H2O Maghreb approach? First, we have considerable success in Morocco. We have a pilot training, which is accredited by the National Vocational Training Authorities, and which is attracting a lot of interest. So we have several hundred applications for each batch, which we cannot all accommodate. So we see that there's certainly a very strong demand. Then on the secondly, as I mentioned before in the PPDP slides, a number of partners and who are willing to support and facilitate the replication of this model in other regions or other countries. Then a third, a demonstrated contribution to the improvement of water management practices. So basically, if you look at the individual modules, the individual domains where we train people, all of these have the overarching aim to improve water management practice in Morocco in this case, but could also be adapted to the local context of other countries. Then looking at sort of the next point being looking at new technologies actually to increase the training quality and to match the technological development of water facilities. Here as an example, if you look at sort of a wastewater treatment plant, which has significantly evolved over the last years, our virtual reality training actually allows you, which is built after a very modern plant in Germany, which is modeled after that, which allows the trainees and students to actually learn whatever they need to from the very latest technology. So it's kind of cutting edge in that regard. And also it allows for e-learning, sort of from an innovation angle. We also have a very good possibility to reach out to audience that might not be able to be physically present at wherever the training is taking place. So at least for those parts that can be done online, we also offer that. And then we're looking at sort of, on the one hand, obviously technical skills, but also soft skills, so that what we've seen across the board in similar projects, that we also sort of need to support people, young people, in terms of how to boost their employability, how to apply for jobs, and also sort of the internship component, which we have in this project, where the young Moroccans are spending a couple of weeks at different companies, public or private, in Morocco to actually apply their newly learned skills. That's also a very important part in this context. Then the modular content, as mentioned, sort of that's something that is very useful for adaptation to local context and needs. And last but not least, the partnership with the private sector to leverage contributions and be sure that we can bridge the industrial skills gap effectively by looking at the demands from the employer side and making sure that the training is up to the standards that are expected in this regard. So that's it from my side. If you want to get in touch with us, please do so, and I'll give back to the moderator.
Thank you very much to the two presenters. So this is time now for questions and answers. So some of you have already noticed, and I'm asking the others to just pay attention to your screen. So there's a Q&A function in the webinar that you can use. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you, but you can type whatever questions you may have. So I'll give you some time to type. While presentation was being delivered, there were some rather practical questions that I can quickly go through with you. So questions about the link to the recorded version of this session. So yeah, we will be able to share the link with you, as well as whatever media that was used today by my colleagues, so videos and presentation. We'll make sure that this is sent your way after the webinar is over. So here is a first question. So I'm reading what I can see. So this can be linked to indicator 6.11, proportion of population using safely managed drinking water services. Well, this is a rather long question. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see it in total. Yes, sorry. This can be linked to indicator 6.11, proportion of population using safely managed drinking water services. And there's a question in connection with that. What is the cost sharing from the government in this capacity building initiative? So maybe Stefan, if you want to say a few words about the government's contribution to this project.
Of course. So on the question, what is the cost sharing by government in this capacity building initiative? Thank you for that. As I said, sort of we have in this PPDP modality, we have three partners. So USAID on the development side, then FESTO and Eon Reality on the private sector side, and then the Moroccan government, basically through the three entities that were mentioned in the PPDP slide. So on the one hand, you have the two ministries of vocational training and State Secretariat of Water, and on the other hand, you have the Moroccan National Office of Electricity and Drinking Water, ONE. Which is owned by the Moroccan government. So their contribution basically is they host at their institute in Rabat. They host the program. So our students that are currently being trained, they're trained at the facilities of ONE. So there's two rooms, for example, one room for the EDS equipment. So for this FESTO equipment that you saw in the video, there's another room, a training room where we have the virtual reality equipment, and then owners' rooms that they have by themselves, as well as certain equipment, sort of technical equipment for the classical sort of activated sludges and these things that they have on the ground. So they're basically contributing by allowing us to use these facilities. In addition, the training is conducted by trainers who are on the payroll of ONE. So they also sort of provide the training in these 4 domains and the 19 modules. And lastly, obviously, we also sort of partner very strongly with them in the development of the different workbooks. So they are also contributing together with UNIDO staff and the staff from our private sector partners to the development of those. So it's actually quite, if you put it in monetary terms, it's actually quite a significant contribution, which we're very thankful for. I hope that that answers your questions. If there's any follow-up or any details, I'm happy to answer those as well. But for the sake of time, I'm trying to keep it a bit shorter.
Thank you, Stefan. While we're receiving some more questions, I would actually like to let the presenters emphasize a bit more on the virtual reality component, maybe to add some more details to what was said earlier. So now asking Ulrike if you could tell us more on this virtual reality applications that are used as part of the training program.
Yes, it's my pleasure to tell you a bit more about that. So I think pictures say more than 1,000 words. So I can perhaps to illustrate what the virtual reality wastewater treatment plant actually looks like and what you can imagine. I can show you a short video and then get back on what we've been seeing there. So as you could see on the video, the virtual reality wastewater treatment plant is a real life model of an actual existing activated sludge wastewater treatment plant. So students, the big benefit to the students within this task is that they are able to actually emerge into a wastewater treatment plant, even if they are like in remote areas and they might be trained, I don't know, in some area in Morocco, for example, where actually no wastewater plants exist at the moment, but they might find a job somewhere in the country where they have to they have to work in a wastewater treatment plant, so they actually have seen all the processes that are available there. They're able to, on the one hand side, to solve tasks like the daily routine, and to also be aware of some dangers, some unusual situations in their daily routine, to kind of develop the eye to actually see dangers, to see health risks, and to be kind of really alert to such kind of situations. And on the other hand, it's those real like rare situations like lightning strikes, flooding, and so on, that usually never happen to you, but if they happen, you're still happy that you already have seen it and you know which measures to take. So I'm very happy if more questions emerge around that. And as I saw also on the questions, we are definitely happy to share all the videos and further information with you later on. And a lot of this information you will also find on the LKDF website webpage.
So thank you, Ulrike. We've received quite a lot of questions, so that I'll go on with what we've received. So question, what is needed to replicate this training in countries that don't have the same infrastructure as Morocco? I think it's a pretty valid question. And well, either Ulrike or Stefan to take that one.
Yes, I'm happy to answer on that. So thank you. That's a very good question. I would say, based on the experiences that we had in Morocco, there's two parts of the training. One, say, like the e-learning parts, the virtual reality, and so on, that are rather easy to transfer, and also don't involve a lot of sort of local context. But on the other hand, you have certainly the modules, which we mentioned, that have to be adapted to the local context. So to accommodate the infrastructure. So what we would say is there's also sort of the same way that Morocco is a very specific case. We can't give you a one-size-fits-all solution where we say, okay, this is exactly what we would change for all other countries. There's some countries who might have sort of a similar structure as Morocco, where there is actually a lot of development going on, a lot of new buildings technically. So they're opening new wastewater treatment plants and desalination plants actually as well as we speak. And there's also obviously in the vicinity of Morocco, if you go say further towards the southeast, there's certain countries where that are at a different stage. So what we would try to do is to get a very good understanding, typically together with the national water authority, so the equivalent of ONE in the respective country, to see what kind of facilities are in place and what we have, and then adapt the modules accordingly, so that we actually ensure that the modules are adapted to the infrastructure on the ground. One thing that is also important is to actually have a training hub that has some sort of basic equipment on the technical side, where certain sort of standard situations can be trained. So say, for example, an activated sludge would be useful in some cases. But for the technical details, I will hand over to my colleague Ulrike.
Yes, thanks, Stefan. Perhaps to add on that, so the nice thing about H2O Maghreb is that it's really adaptable, as Stefan just mentioned. So for H2O Maghreb, for Morocco, we developed 19 modules, but these modules can be easily either adapted in the content, in the level of content. So let's say to add another layer on the level, but also different modules can be added. So it can be really easily adapted to basically every environment. So what we usually do first when we enter a new country is that we go through a thorough assessment with the authorities. And as Stefan also mentioned, a strong training partner, a strong training institution is necessary. But concerning infrastructure, it's very flexible. So if there is a lot of infrastructure already available, well, of course, the better for the training. But if, for example, activated sludge treatment plants might be available only in very few countries, so of course this is not a prerequisite to start the training. So this is really flexible, and we now have the experience. We have private sector partners. We know more or less what is on the market and how we can adapt the training also in terms of equipment to provide the training that is needed for the country. So in this sense, the training program is very, very flexible, and yeah, so we're very happy to discuss more on that.
So thanks again to both of you. Several questions about the number of beneficiaries, so either students or trainers. So again, 42 trainees so far, 10 trainers, and some professionals actually being trained as we speak as part of the program. So this is a question that has been asked several times. And another one to my colleagues, what are or what have been the main challenges you have faced to implement this project?
Well, this is a well, a difficult question to answer, I guess. But I would say in this project we were very blessed with our project partners. So everybody was really willing to having the same goal and going into the same direction to implement this project. So in this sense, it was it was a very nice project to implement. But I would say the main challenge with a lot of developing project is the time frame. So it's an extremely tight time frame to develop the needs, because of course you need quite a lot of time to do the assessment, to get a clear picture of the country's needs and so on and so forth. So this is consuming quite a lot of time in an already tight time frame. So my suggestion also for replication is the more information that is already there, that has already been assessed, the easier it is to get started straight away. So, but I guess the important points to implement such a project is a strong training institution, in the sense that the basic parts are there. So the building is there, and there are classrooms we can use. That there is a team of trainers that are willing to enhance their knowledge, and that are open to new technologies, and to kind of to move further. Yeah, and of course, yeah, a donor that we were also very happy with, that supports us with the implementation the implementation work we're doing on site. So yes, rapidly changing ministries, governments, and so on and so forth. This is of course also a project, a problem that can occur, that are challenges. But yes, so this is something you have to cope with.
If I may, I just want to add on the first part, or the first challenge that you mentioned, Ulrike, the time frame. Actually, this project, as a pilot project, was designed for a 2 years performance period, and as explained, it was tight time framework. And even though we succeed as a team to achieve most objectives, but we realized that at the with the approach of the end of the 2 years, we start seeing the outcomes from the project, and so we realized that there is a need to extend the timing. So we're working on extending the timing of H2O Maghreb, and also in order to enhance or to offer more opportunities for replication, and maybe try to assist interested missions or potential partners in their, if they are willing to explore H2O Maghreb model or to learn from it. So timing was a huge challenge for us as a team, as a project team.
Thank you again. There's a question about the costs for the students attending this H2O training course.
Yes, Stefan here. Hi. Thank you for that question. That's also a very good one for us. Obviously, what was very important for us is to ensure that there are no barriers to entry to the course. So in that sense, we're trying to keep the costs for the students to like a token account, which to my knowledge, right, to around $50. And otherwise there's no contribution on the side of the students, so thereby sort of ensuring that we can reach out to all kinds of young Moroccans who are willing to participate in the project, and have no sort of monetary barriers to participation.
Well, thank you, Stefan. A question about whether we have information on the success of the students that have been hired by companies and water operators here in Morocco. But this is a question that I may answer directly, being in touch with some of these students myself. The feedback from the companies is very positive, and they've been recruited on long-term appointments. So again, we've received a sense that the skills that they got attending this training course are aligned with what is needed in the job sector, which sort of reinforces for us the need to continue delivering such a training program in Morocco. Then moving to two questions that were asked, was formulated in different ways, but the sense is pretty much the same. Is there a plan to launch this training outside Morocco? And the other question was a plan to train technicians and professionals from other countries. So maybe Stefan on that.
Yes, of course. So yes, we do have plans to replicate the project outside of Morocco. I mean, for us, this has been sort of a pilot initiative, which has proven to be very successful so far. So we're looking at a range of countries in the region to replicate this. But if any of you have any sort of proposals, we're obviously very happy to at a later point in time discuss and see how we could join forces. And sort of that would also link to sort of the flexibility of the modules that would be pretty much open for countries at various stages of sort of water knowledge development or with different infrastructure. Currently, under the framework of the project, and to the second part of the question, do we train people from outside Morocco? Under H2O Maghreb, we don't for the time being, but it's a possibility for the future. But the facility that we partner with at ONE, they actually have a very strong partnership with several other national water operators in mostly sub-Saharan African countries, but also outside the region. So they have sort of the habit and the facilities to allow for training for people from other countries to come. Which is typically limited to smaller groups. So we're talking here not like sort of in the hundreds, but rather like a dozen, probably around those numbers. They also have sort of attached facilities and dormitories and so on, which we're using for the students. So in terms of facilities, that's all there. And we could in theory also train people from outside of Morocco, but we see that the demand for now is so strong within Morocco, so that we're actually sort of finding it tricky to satisfy that demand first, but it's definitely a consideration.
Okay, the next question is probably to Ulrike. Is there a plan or a need for a specific module for the rural context?
Well, thanks for the question. Within the project H2O Maghreb, as there is, well, water is a very vast sector, and there are many challenges in the water sector. So we had to start at some point. So this is why, together with the local partners and with the other project partners, we decided to focus on urban areas and on like the basic water management skills. But definitely now coming to a point where the first training is well established and the first modules are established, we are looking into the development of new training modules adding on to the training program. So focusing on subjects more related to rural areas is definitely an option, that we are looking into. So as well as which could also be irrigation, looking at seeing the fact that, for example, for Morocco, 80% of the water resources are used for irrigation. So it definitely makes sense to look into sustainable irrigation methods, about water efficiency, non-revenue water, and so on and so forth in this sector. Another demand we are getting a lot also from industries and also from our local project partners is that is water reuse. So as water resources are scarce, so reuse will be a big theme, and intensification of water treatment is also getting more and more important as the urban areas are growing very fast. So you have to, if you treat the wastewater, a lot of sludge will be generated as well. So sludge treatment is becoming the next challenge in the sector. So there are many areas that are still open, and also we wanted to use this webinar to kind of to get the feedback of the participants on where you see the biggest challenges, and because of course we need to kind of to list and to focus on the most important facts. But thanks for the input on the rural areas.
Okay, thank you very much both to the presenters and the participants. I'm afraid we will not be able to take all the questions today, but again, I kindly suggest to all of you to reach out to the presenters, the 4 people that you can whose contact details are shared on your screen, and we'll be happy to answer any further questions you may have. In the meantime, you will be receiving, as agreed or as mentioned earlier, this recorded version of this session, as well as the different documents that we used. And well, thanks again. It was lovely to have this webinar with all of you, and we hope to be in touch with you in the near future. So thanks again, and talk to you soon.